Today we're making the ultimate Christmas treat from scratch, traditional mince pies with homemade mincemeat and a buttery pastry. If you've never made your own, it's much easier than you think and totally worth it. Come on, let's get going. All right, you're still here. I caught your attention with that buttery pastry, didn't I? Or maybe it was my new apron. Do you like it? I've got a little extra, something to go with it too. Went the full hog. It's December, you know. You got to get into the spirit because there's not enough of that in the shops, right? No. Well, anyway, so let's talk mince pies. This is an English staple. I mean, it's an institution. If you have Christmas without mince pies, is it even Christmas? So, for anyone out there who doesn't know what mince pies are, or might think that it's some kind of, meat dish that you serve with two vegetables, let me put you straight. Mince pies are in fact a little pastry, sweet pastry, despite the name, and they're stuffed with dried fruit and what we call mincemeat, which is not mincemeat. I mean, it has a slight connection because one ingredient called suet happens to be from beef. But if that really irks you, you can find vegetarian suet. I personally wouldn't do that. It's a ultra-processed seed oil, but hey, we won't go there right now. Anyway, let's crack on, see what we need for this recipe. We're going to focus here on the pastry. This is a great skill to know. And the mincemeat, I'm going to put into a separate video. So I'll put a link to that in the video and in the description below, so you can go and check that out. Okay, what are we going to need? Scales or cup measurers with measuring spoons, perhaps some kind of knife, mixing bowl, something to put some water in, a sieve, a rolling pin, pastry cutters, a pastry brush, a mini pie tin or mince pie tin, and a cooling rack. So not too much stuff today, but let's look at our ingredients. We'll move this lot to one side. Right, so we'll need some flour, obviously. Flour, now I'm using self-raising flour or self-rising flour, as you call it in America. If you don't have this, don't worry. You can just use normal flour, or you could add 3 teaspoons of baking powder to it, because that's basically the same ratio. It's a 1.5 teaspoon of baking powder per cup of flour. Okay, so we've got 250 grams of self-raising flour, and it works out to 2 cups. Then it's half of that weight is going to be in fat, and it's split here in this recipe. So I've got butter and lard or shortening. So this pastry is a 2-to-1 ratio. That's a basic short crust pastry ratio. Difference in this one is that I'm using lard instead of some butter. Now, some people don't like using lard. You could use vegetable shortening instead. We've got suet in the mincemeat, so you may as well. And you could just use all butter, in which case you would have half the weight, so 125 grams of butter. But what we've got here is 85 grams of butter, which is about 3 ounces and 6 tablespoons. And we've got 40 grams of lard, which is about half of that, so 3 tablespoons and 1.5 ounces. What else? 1 tablespoon of icing sugar and half a teaspoon of salt. And we've got some ice. Now, if you were here for our pumpkin pie a couple of weeks ago, you'll know what that's for. What else is it? Okay, we've got an empty jar. An empty jar? Why have we got an empty jar? Mincemeat. Where's our mincemeat? My mincemeat is in the oven. Would you believe it? It's in the oven. You'll have to check out my mincemeat recipe if you haven't already and see what that's all about. So that's still happening. We can get the dough together while that's finishing up because the dough will need to rest anyway. So let's crack on. Right, so a top tip for this is to have a cold bowl, and the butter and lard wants to be straight out of the fridge. So first thing is to sieve the flour. Sifty. Right, then in go the icing sugar. Oh, I could have sifted that as well, never mind. And the salt, and you've got to have really clean hands for this. Just give that a little mix like that. And then the butter is going to go in, and we may as well do the lard at the same time. So now we've done this before. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you'll know we started with the crumble, and what we're doing is we're making like breadcrumbs or sand. So we're grabbing these lumps of butter and lard and we're squishing them in the tips of our fingers like that. You just keep doing this until there are no big lumps.
And we did it with the pumpkin pie as well. This is where it's really helpful to be at the right height to see what you're doing. So if you need to, you get a small stool to stand on. I actually found a stool. There's a link in the description below. I've put some useful tools that I use a lot, such as like a non-slip mat, which keeps everything nice and steady.
And right, so you see that it's a little bit sort of sandy now. All the big lumps are gone. So then you want to take some in your fingers like this, not up in the palms of your hands too much because they're really warm. Right, so then you pick up a little bit and then through your fingers like that.
It's like being back in the sand pit, isn't it? Oops. Right. Not far off. Okay.
So you see that consistency there? Now there might still be little bits of butter or lard. It doesn't matter. It will make it nice and flaky. Just the important thing is that most of that mixture has that kind of sandy texture to it. Brilliant. Okay, now we've got this ice water. So we're just going to put in a little bit at a time. So no more than a spoon at a time. Then you could get your hands back in there, but it's going to start to get really sticky at this point. So I've got an extra spoon. You just want to stir that until it starts to come together.
More water in. A little at a time. Let's try it again.
Oh, I got my hands back in there. Couldn't resist. Look, it's a little bit like the crumble we did the other day. So we're going to put a little bit more water in. Maybe not a whole spoon. Just got to sprinkle a little at a time. Let's try that again. Okay, there we go. That's now sticky, and I can tell that will form a dough. Instead of water, you could put an egg in, or just an egg yolk. That will make the pastry a bit richer, and it will also make it less crumbly. Now we just want to put this into sort of flat disc. We don't want to overwork it too much at this stage. We're not going to do any kneading or anything like that. Then a little bit of cling film over that loosely, and that's going to go in the fridge to rest for half an hour. I may as well clear this up. All right, so my dough is rested and the mincemeat is also ready. I've just finished jarring that up. So now we're going to roll out the pastry and be ready to assemble our mince pies. Oh, it's exciting. Right, so put plenty of flour on your surface there and on that dough. And then we're just going to gently roll from the middle. Keep that pastry moving. If it starts to stick, a little more dusting of flour. Now, when you roll the pastry, you want to keep moving it around like that. So you're not constantly rolling in the same spot. And also, you don't want to roll right to the edge, because if you roll over the edge, you're going to squish the edge and it's going to be much thinner than the middle. So just roll in the middle, and by rotating that pastry, you're getting all those areas. Right, we're there. It's a little bit stuck, so I'll just move it around a bit. It's about 3-4 millimeters thick, I'd say. You don't really want to roll out any more than that, otherwise they'll be too fragile. You could do them thicker if you really like thick pastry. Right, get your tin. Then we've got 2 sizes of cutters, and just gently cut them out and pop them on. Now, we'll have enough in this first batch for this whole tray. But the key is you want to have the same amount of lids as bases. So it can be handy to do the lids while you're at it and just put those to one side. Also, we want to make the best use of this pastry, so try not to leave too big gaps. And don't throw away these edges. We'll put those to use. A few more. Okay. This leftover dough, we can then ball up and then roll it out again. So we could either do 3 more lids, or we could do some stars instead. So we need 4. Great. Now with the rest of the dough, we could make some other shapes to go on top of our lids. And I've got a little Christmas tree one there. Do you see that? All right, I've had a bit of a tidy up. It's always good to keep your work surface clear and tidy as you go. Something I'm not always very good at, I will confess. Right, I push those down lightly. Now we'll get our mincemeat. This is freshly made today. And then you just want to pop a teaspoon of mincemeat into each case. Now no more than that, because if you overload them, they will bubble out and go all over the tray and get stuck, and you just don't want that. If there's any that look like they're a bit low, then you can add a little bit more. But there we go. No more than that. Right. Next, we're going to put the lids on. So let's get a lid. Now, what you want to do is you want to get some egg wash. Now, this wasn't on my list of ingredients earlier. All it is just a whisked up egg with a little bit of milk. And using your pastry brush, if you go around the edge there, like that, turning it carefully, and then flip that over, that egg will seal the edge round. Great. Now these stars, they're just going to rest on top. They don't need any egg underneath, like that. Now, we want to egg wash the whole lot. So carefully with your brush, just go over the top like that. Try not to go down the edges. Not a lot, it's just a light surface. Now we can put our little extra decorations on these. You don't have to do this bit. And then a bit more egg wash. Okay, now this bit is also up to you. You could just put them in like that. They would be lovely and they'll go golden over the top. Some people like putting on icing sugar after they've come out. What I like to do is put a bit of sugar on before they go in, and you get that crispy crunch as well. Okay, these are now ready to go into the oven. So into that preheated oven at 180 degrees, that's 350 Fahrenheit. Depending on your oven, that will be around 12, maybe 15 minutes. But you want to keep an eye on them and make sure they don't burn. Oh, they are looking good. Right, gonna leave them in the tin for just 2 minutes, no more, just so it cools down a little bit. All right, okay, if they are a little bit stuck, use something like a silicone spatula here to just loosen them carefully like that. Then carefully, you want to try and not touch this hot pan because it's still fairly hot, and then carefully take them out like that. Pop it onto the cooling rack. Okay, they need to cool down a little bit before we can let anyone bite into them because you'll burn your tongue. So I'm just going to leave them there for a bit and I'll see you right in a second. Well, there we have it, guys. Traditional homemade Christmas mince pies with homemade mince meat and buttery, flaky pastry. Oh, I think I'm going to have one. Mmm. Mmm. Really good. You have got to make these. They're just perfect for taking round to friends or enjoying by yourself. I hope you have fun making these. If you enjoyed this, make sure you like and subscribe. Next week, a bit more Christmas stuff. We're going to do a Christmas tree cheese board with homemade crackers. Ooh, another really good one to bring to a Christmas party. See you next week, guys.